Hi guys, Kevin Pooler from Metalworks Institute. Now today we're here to make a snare drum inside of Reason's Thor. And one thing to note about snare drum synthesis is that it requires a few elements to come together. So we're going to get started with some of the main properties of a snare drum, being that it's percussive, right? So just like we can make a kick drum or a tom or some kind of percussive sound, we need a fast envelope which has a quick decay time. Okay, snare drums don't last for 10 seconds. All right, now the next thing to do would be, let's choose our waveform. That's kind of how I always build my patches. And I happen to know triangle. It has harmonic waves or harmonic signature, kind of like a snare drum, with every other harmonic present in the overtone. So get these kind of light, not too aggressive timbres already. And one other thing to note about a snare drum is, where do you play it on your MIDI keyboard or when you're using the piano roll? Well, a lot of snare drums, their fundamental or lowest frequency is somewhere in this range. Let's say, depending on how high you tune it, between 300 and 100 and something hertz. So we're going to kind of play in that range and realize that if we play too high, we're starting to get, or too low, we're starting to get a tone that doesn't resemble a snare. The next thing to note about snare drums is they not only have a fundamental pitch and overtones, but they have noisy elements like a snare drum, the snare drum wires vibrating. So let's listen to straight white noise at the moment. Okay, kind of slamming through like that. Every random frequency possible is happening there. And then when you mix the two, and we have a nice balancing knob here in Thor where we can go between oscillator 1 and 2 and any degree of either. So this is where you start to say, okay, wait a second. That kind of reminds me of a snare drum. Especially change your decay time a little slower, or a little faster, I mean, and we got, there you go, nice percussive, synthetic sounding snare. The next thing we could mess with, we could try out different options here with our filter. Maybe use our filter envelope to add different kind of attack qualities to the snare. Notice how we sweep through here and we get either the brightest snare or a kind of muted mellow snare. What I like to do often is use my filter envelope. So here's the amount that the envelope will affect the cutoff frequency, and shape the envelope over here, which is affecting the cutoff, in a way that it quickly opens up so we get that nice brightness at the beginning, and then it decays down to a pure triangle tone. So with that in mind, let's kind of fine-tune this idea. There we go. Okay, perhaps a little more white noise mixed in. You can try things like a little release time, would be nice. A little longer release at the end there. Okay, polyphony on one there. That was a mistake where it overlaps. So usually we don't want two snares at once. So there you go. You have a kind of synthesized snare. Some icing on the cake would be additional distortion to kind of give it a different quality. We could even try a final filter here. Say state variable is nice, which is just a fancy way of saying we get to choose what kind of filter we're using, like high pass, band pass, low pass, notch, or peak. Let's not let the envelope affect this one. So here we go. Here's a high pass, kind of sweeping through. Here's a low pass. See, that would be a little too dramatic. So high pass or band pass or notch are probably your main players here. Here's a band pass. I'd say we're good with that for now. Experiment, try some notches, high pass, low pass, or peak, and you might get different kinds of snare drums. Lastly, I'd say, like all my patches, I'll create some kind of effect maybe that might convince you a little bit more that we're onto something of a snare drum. Put it in a bit of a smaller room. Okay, and a lot of time when you're using this in a track, as again, one more piece of icing here, we're gonna try out a compressor to finalize and kind of glue the reverb into the synth timbre there. So let's also get some of that nice snap in the beginning. So there you have it. There's snare drum synthesis 101. And like I say, part of it's setting it up and just experimenting, fine-tuning knobs, and seeing what you desire for your production. So thanks for listening, and if you'd like to learn more, please visit metalworksinstitute.com.